A jury looked at every piece of evidence. They heard 7 weeks of testimony. They watched the hotel surveillance video. They heard from the victims. And when it was all over, they said not guilty. The courtroom had spoken. Not guilty on sex trafficking. Not guilty on racketeering. Not guilty on the charges that could have sent him to prison for life. The jury spoke, and the judge ignored them. SeanCombs was sentenced to 50 months in federal prison for charges the jury said he did not commit. His own lawyers are now calling it a perversion of justice. 3 federal appeals judges heard the case on April 9th. They described it as an exceptionally difficult case. And as of today, they still have not ruled. Diddy could walk out of prison a free man any day now, and the legal argument his lawyers are making is one that even his enemies are struggling to answer. Stay with me, because this is the most important development in the Diddy story since the verdict, and almost nobody is talking about it. To understand why this appeal is so powerful, you need to understand exactly what the jury actually decided. The trial began on May 5, 2025, in the federal district court in Lower Manhattan. The prosecution painted Diddy as a man who used power, violence, and fear to get what he wanted. They showed the world the 2016 hotel surveillance video, the one showing Combs kicking and dragging his then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura in a hotel corridor. They brought victims to the stand. They built what they believed was an airtight case. And then the jury deliberated for 3 days. 3 full days. And when they came back, the verdict was split. Not guilty on racketeering conspiracy. Not guilty on sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. That is the Mann Act, a federal law that makes it a crime to transport someone across state lines for sexual activity. That is what Diddy was convicted of. Not sex trafficking, not racketeering, transportation. And his lawyers say that single distinction is the entire case for his freedom. So what does a typical sentence look like for someone convicted of the same charges as Diddy? 15 months. That is the average. 15 months is what federal courts typically hand down for transportation to engage in prostitution under the Mann Act. Diddy received 50 months, more than 3 times the typical sentence. And his lawyers say they can prove exactly why that happened, and exactly why it was wrong. In their 84-page court filing submitted in December, his defense team made one central argument. The judge acted as a 13th juror. That is a legal term. It means the judge substituted his own judgment for the jury's. The jury said not guilty on sex trafficking and racketeering. But at sentencing, Judge Arun Subramanian described Diddy's behavior in terms that matched the charges the jury had already rejected. He said Combs had coerced, exploited, and forced his girlfriends to have sex. His lawyers say those are findings the jury specifically refused to make, and the judge used them anyway to justify the harshest sentence ever handed down for this type of charge. His attorney Alexander Shapiro stood before the 3-judge appeals panel on April 9th and said this. Their unanimous verdict was not guilty on the most serious charges. But those are what drove the sentence. This was the highest sentence ever for this type of charge. And she is right. Look at the numbers. For the exact same Mann Act charges, the federal sentencing guidelines recommend 12 to 18 months. Diddy received 50 months. His lawyers argue that the only way you get to 50 months from charges that carry a guideline of 12 to 18 months is if you factor in the sex trafficking and racketeering conduct that the jury specifically said he did not do. And here is where the legal argument gets even more powerful. The United States Sentencing Commission, the federal body that sets sentencing guidelines for every court in the country, recently passed new rules on this exact issue. The new guidelines say this. Not guilty means not guilty. Those are the exact words. Not guilty means not guilty. Courts should not impose harsher sentences based on conduct a jury has already rejected. Diddy's lawyers are saying the judge broke those rules. And 3 federal appeals judges called the case exceptionally difficult, which means at least one of them thinks the lawyers have a point. But the transportation conviction is not the only thing being challenged. Diddy's lawyers are also asking the appeals court to throw out the conviction entirely. And the argument they are using to do it has shocked legal experts on both sides. They are arguing the First Amendment, the right to free speech. Here is the core of the argument. Diddy's lawyers say the videos he recorded of his sexual encounters were amateur pornography, and amateur pornography is protected by the First Amendment. If that is true, then the sexual activity documented in those videos was a form of protected expression, and transporting people to participate in protected expression is not a federal crime. The prosecution fired back immediately. They argued that accepting this reasoning would mean commercial sex operations could claim First Amendment protection simply by making encounters creative or staged. The judges pushed back hard on both sides. But here's the thing. The First Amendment argument does not need to win the whole case. It only needs to create enough doubt that the three judges agree the conviction needs another look. And with a case they themselves called exceptionally difficult, that doubt already exists. Now let us talk about what actually happens if Diddy wins this appeal. Because there are three possible outcomes, and only one of them keeps him in prison. Outcome 1. The appeals court upholds the conviction and the sentence. Diddy stays in prison until April 2028. This is what the prosecution wants, and it is still the most likely outcome statistically. Outcome 2. The appeals court upholds the conviction, but sends the case back for resentencing. This means Diddy is still guilty, but the judge has to recalculate the sentence without factoring in the acquitted conduct. If that happens, his sentence drops from 50 months to somewhere between 12 and 18 months. Since he has already served over 18 months in custody, he could walk out of prison almost immediately. Outcome 3. The appeals court throws out the conviction entirely. Diddy walks free. No conviction. No sentence. Case over. His legal team called outcome 2 or 3 a realistic possibility. The judges called the case exceptionally difficult. And in federal appeals court, exceptionally difficult almost always means the challenger has made a genuinely strong argument. There's one more piece of this story that nobody is covering. While all of this is happening in the appeals court, Diddy has been doing something else entirely inside Fort Dix Federal Prison in New Jersey. He enrolled in the residential drug abuse program. His rep released a statement saying he is an active participant, fully engaged in his work, focused on growth, and committed to positive change. Completing that program earns federal prisoners a reduction in their sentence. It is why his release date has already been moved 3 times. Originally May 8, 2028, then extended to June 4th after an alleged prison rule violation, then moved back to April 25th, and then moved again to April 15, 2028. A man with a release date that has changed 4 times in less than a year. A man enrolled in rehabilitation to reduce his sentence further. A man whose lawyers just argued before 3 federal judges that his sentence was the highest ever imposed for his type of conviction. Is not a man who is giving up. His lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, said it publicly after the original verdict. "We're not nearly done fighting. We're just getting started." They meant it. So where does this leave us today? 3 federal judges heard 2 hours of arguments on April 9th. They have not ruled. They could rule tomorrow. They could rule next week. They could rule next month. But when they do, the decision will land like a bomb. If Diddy wins, even partial relief, every headline in the world will carry his name. Every person who ever followed this story will be back searching for answers. And if his sentence is reduced to time already served, SeanCombs could be out of prison before this video gets its 10 millionth view. Now I want to be clear about something. The women who testified in that courtroom suffered real harm. Cassie Ventura told the world what she experienced. Other victims came forward at enormous personal cost. The question being decided in the appeals court is not whether those things happened. It is whether the judge followed the law when he decided how long to punish Combs for them. That is a legal question, and legal questions have legal answers. The answer is coming, and when it arrives, you already know where to find the full breakdown. Subscribe to this channel, because the Diddy story is not over. Not even close.